What are the key skills of a business analyst? A business analyst needs excellent communication skills to interact with stakeholders, analytical skills to evaluate data, problem-solving skills to find solutions, and documentation skills for creating clear reports. Technical proficiency in tools like Excel, SQL, and various modeling tools is also essential. How do you handle requirement changes from stakeholders? I prioritize flexibility and clear communication. I document the requested changes, assess their impact on the project, and communicate with stakeholders to discuss timelines, budgets, and any potential risks. I aim to find a balance that meets stakeholder needs while adhering to project constraints. Can you describe your experience with data analysis? I have experience using Excel, SQL, and BI tools like Tableau for data analysis. I collect, process, and analyze data to identify trends and provide actionable insights. In my last role, I identified a 15% increase in customer churn and proposed solutions that led to a 10% retention improvement. What techniques do you use for gathering requirements? I use a combination of interviews, workshops, surveys, document analysis, and observation. For example, I recently conducted stakeholder interviews and workshops to gather requirements for a CRM upgrade project. Explain a challenging project you handled and the outcome. I once worked on a project where the requirements were constantly changing. I created a change management plan and set up weekly meetings to manage expectations. This approach led to a successful project delivery on time and within budget. How do you prioritize tasks in a project? I use prioritization techniques like Moscow must have, should have, could have, and won't have in the Eisenhower matrix. I consult stakeholders to understand business priorities and ensure that the project focuses on delivering the most value. What is a use case? A use case is a description of how a user will interact with a system to achieve a specific goal. It includes actors, preconditions, the main flow of events, and postconditions. It helps in understanding functional requirements. How do you handle conflicts with stakeholders? I listen actively to understand their concerns and identify the root cause of the conflict. I aim to find a mutually beneficial solution by aligning stakeholder expectations with project goals. Clear communication and negotiation skills are key. What business analysis tools do you use? I use tools like Microsoft Visio for process modeling, Jira for managing requirements, Balsamiq for wireframing, and Excel for data analysis. Each tool helps in different stages of the business analysis process. Explain the difference between functional and non-functional requirements. Functional requirements specify what the system should do, such as features and functionalities. Non-functional requirements are the qualities of the system, like performance, security, and usability. What is the importance of a business requirement document (BRD)? A BRD provides a clear understanding of the project scope, objectives, and requirements for all stakeholders. It serves as a foundation for the project, guiding development and ensuring all parties are aligned. How do you perform a gap analysis? I compare the current state with the desired future state to identify the gaps. Then, I analyze the root causes of those gaps and propose solutions to bridge them. This helps in setting project goals and focusing efforts. What is the role of a BA in Agile methodology? In Agile, A BA acts as a facilitator between stakeholders and the development team. They help in creating user stories, defining acceptance criteria, prioritizing the product backlog, and ensuring continuous feedback for iterative development. How do you define a successful project? A successful project meets or exceeds stakeholder expectations, is delivered on time and within budget, and aligns with the defined scope and business objectives. Measuring the project's impact through key performance indicators (KPIs) is crucial. What is a workflow diagram, and why is it important? A workflow diagram visually represents a process, showing the sequence of steps and decision points. It helps in understanding the process flow, identifying bottlenecks, and finding areas for improvement. How do you validate requirements? I validate requirements by conducting stakeholder reviews, organizing walkthroughs, and creating prototypes. I also use traceability matrices to ensure that all requirements are covered and aligned with business objectives. Describe a time when you identified a key business problem. In my previous role, I noticed a high rate of abandoned shopping carts on our e-commerce platform. I conducted a root cause analysis and discovered issues with the checkout process. We implemented changes that improved the conversion rate by 20%. What is SWOT analysis, and how have you used it? SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. I used SWOT analysis to evaluate a company's market position and develop strategies to leverage strengths and opportunities while mitigating weaknesses and threats. How do you create a use case diagram? I identify the actors, users, or systems and their interactions with the system. I define use cases based on user goals and visualize them in a diagram using tools like Microsoft Visio or Lucidchart. What is a user story? A user story is a simple, concise description of a feature from the end user's perspective. It follows the format, as a user role, I want, feature, so that, benefit. It helps in understanding user needs. What methods do you use to ensure data quality? I perform data validation, data cleansing, and use statistical tools to check for accuracy and consistency. Ensuring data quality is crucial for making informed business decisions. How do you handle a project that is behind schedule? I assess the reasons for the delay, prioritize tasks, and develop a recovery plan. This might involve reallocating resources, adjusting timelines, or re-evaluating project scope with stakeholders to get back on track. What is the difference between a BRD and an FRD? A BRD business requirement document defines the high-level business needs, while an FRD functional requirement document breaks down those needs into detailed functions and specifications for developers. How do you gather information from stakeholders? I use techniques like interviews, surveys, focus groups, and workshops. I also analyze existing documentation to understand their needs and expectations. What's your experience with SQL? I have experience in writing SQL queries to extract, manipulate, and analyze data. I have used SQL to generate reports, find data patterns, and validate data accuracy for decision making. How do you perform a root cause analysis? I use methods like the 5 whys, fishbone diagram, and Pareto analysis to identify the root cause of a problem. Once the cause is identified, I propose solutions to address it. Explain a data model you've created. I created a data model for a CRM system to track customer interactions. I defined the entities, e.g., customer, order, product, their attributes, and relationships. This helped in understanding data flow and improving database structure. What is your approach to risk management? I identify potential risks, assess their impact, and develop a mitigation plan. I prioritize risks based on their likelihood and severity, continuously monitor them, and adjust the plan as needed. How do you ensure project documentation is up to date? I follow a documentation management process that includes version control, regular updates, and stakeholder reviews. I use collaboration tools like Confluence to keep documentation accessible and current. What is BPMN? BPMN Business Process Model in Notation is a graphical representation of business processes. It uses standardized symbols to model workflows, making it easier to understand and optimize processes. How do you perform stakeholder analysis? I identify stakeholders, categorize them by interest and influence, and determine their communication needs. I use a stakeholder matrix to manage and engage them effectively. What is a requirement traceability matrix (RTM)? An RTM is a document that links requirements to their origin and tracks them throughout the project. It ensures all requirements are met and helps in managing changes during the project lifecycle. How do you facilitate a requirements workshop? I prepare an agenda, invite key stakeholders, and use techniques like brainstorming, mind mapping, and role-playing. I encourage open communication, document findings, and follow up with a summary. How do you handle scope creep? I manage scope creep by clearly defining project scope, documenting requirements, and using a change control process. Any new requests are assessed for impact on the project timeline and budget before approval. What's your experience with Agile user stories? I have written user stories with clear acceptance criteria, prioritized them in the backlog, and facilitated sprint planning meetings. My focus is on delivering value in small, incremental releases. What is UML, and how do you use it? UML Unified Modeling Language is a set of diagrams to visualize system architecture. I use use case diagrams, sequence diagrams, and class diagrams to represent system requirements and interactions. Describe a time when you influenced a difficult stakeholder. I had a stakeholder who was resistant to change. I used data and evidence to show the benefits of the proposed solution and engaged them in the decision-making process, which gained their support. What's your experience with financial analysis? I have experience in budgeting, forecasting, and financial modeling. I use tools like Excel to analyze costs, calculate ROI, and ensure projects are financially viable. How do you ensure all requirements are met? I use traceability matrices to track requirements from initiation to delivery. I conduct regular reviews, involve stakeholders, and perform testing to validate that all requirements are met. What's your approach to testing and QA? I develop test plans, create test cases, and perform user acceptance testing (UAT). I also collaborate with QA teams to ensure that all requirements are tested and meet the acceptance criteria. What are some key metrics for project success? Key metrics include on-time delivery, adherence to budget, meeting project scope, stakeholder satisfaction, and measuring the impact on business objectives. like increased revenue or customer satisfaction. How do you conduct a feasibility analysis? I assess the project's technical, economic, and operational feasibility. I evaluate the costs, risks, benefits, and alignment with business goals to determine if the project is viable. What is impact analysis? Impact analysis evaluates the potential consequences of a change in a project. It helps to identify the scope, resources needed, and potential risks associated with the change. Describe your experience with process mapping. I use process mapping to visually document workflows. In my last project, I mapped the sales process to identify inefficiencies, which helped us streamline operations and reduce cycle time by 20%. How do you handle tight deadlines? I prioritize tasks, focus on critical deliverables, and communicate with stakeholders about potential adjustments. I ensure efficient time management and delegate when necessary to meet deadlines. What is your approach to business modeling? I use business models like SWOT, PESTLE, and Porter's 5 forces to analyze the company's market position, identify opportunities, and inform strategic decisions. How do you prepare for a project kickoff meeting? I prepare a detailed agenda, define the project's objectives, gather requirements, and involve key stakeholders. I use this meeting to align everyone on the project scope, timeline, and expectations. How do you manage multiple projects simultaneously? I use project management tools like Trello or Asana to track tasks, set priorities, and manage timelines. I also allocate time blocks for each project to stay focused and ensure deadlines are met. What do you do if a project doesn't meet stakeholder expectations? I analyze the root cause of the discrepancy, gather feedback, and develop an action plan to address the gaps. I ensure clear communication and involve stakeholders in any corrective actions. Why do you want to work with our company? I admire your company's commitment to innovation and customer satisfaction. I'm excited about the opportunity to contribute to your projects, using my skills in business analysis to help drive strategic decisions and improvements.